with evolution, we have developed these different areas of the brain. We have the amygdala, the hippocampus, the neocortex. What are these different regions and what functions do each of them perform?
So there are boundaries in the brain, and they are made up by smart scientists. And some of them are logical. Some of them look like the map of Africa. Okay. There are some arbitrary divisions. Right. And then again, from the outside in philosophy, people say, okay, we have to find a home for memory, hippocampus. We have to find a home for emotions, amygdala. We have to find for something like decision making. It's the prefrontal cortex. It's basically a mapping to from the preconceived ideas to brain structures. Not about mechanism. Mechanisms are not mentioned. It's all about brain structures. Now, nobody really believes it this way, except a lot of people do their works this way. So this is what I call the neophrenology, is that exactly this is what happened. Finally, we have a fantastic method, the MRI, that can look into and peek into the brain and look at changes there. And then we are very happy that we will find these correlations. And then we find homes for anything you want. The problem with that is that, you may remember in my book, I have a funny picture about the prefrontal cortex. There are 500 different words that are associated. So the way how I look at what I'm looking for, and I can't find anywhere else, I put it in the prefrontal cortex. And then those smorgasbord of words do not correspond to any entity at the moment. So it's another good example for me to look at what the prefrontal cortex do and how it relates to the activity of the others. So in these maps, in this phrenology map, we have correspondences. Let's say Christianity, it's Europe, Buddhism, somewhere else. So we have these maps. Now, the truth is that everybody kind of feels that the real action in the brain is about interactions. So how these structures interact with others. The arrows or the connections are the key rather than the secondary things. And this is represented whatsoever in our thinking today, the interactions and how many ways you have to look at and how many interactions have to be taken place. And once you talk about interaction, that happens and evolves over time. And if it evolves over time, you have to monitor the brain activity and look at these trajectories of activities. That's much more difficult, but much more exciting than to say, I found free will, or I found the region of the brain that does this and this and this. And then you simplify it, everybody is happy, and you teach it in high school. And then people come up to you when I go to high school and said, no, I understand, but how do I move my finger? And you just say, oh, something happens up there in the prefrontal cortex. That's not a satisfactory explanation.
Why do we have this penchant for creating labels, creating boxes for just so that it gives you an easy idea that you can gravitate towards? Or is there some merit to the argument?
Well, it's the problem of language. Language is an inevitable discretizer. That thought, if you think about it for a second, is not discretized. It is continuous, but we chop it up into discrete things such as words and phrases and expressions, and because this is how we communicate. And that this tension between the two is enormous. It's like relativity and quantum physics, because one is about discretizing, the other one is continuity, and that is something not solved in our thinking either. But once I discretize something, there are again very wise slogans or nice statements, is that once we name something, we understand it, and that's a huge mistake. I can name God and Santa Claus and irrational numbers and things like that. They exist in my mind, but do they exist out there, and are they worth pursuing when I know that I constructed them?